The first warning came as a whisper in the data. Deep inside the Galactic Empire's border monitoring station, sensors picked up a distortion, a slow, heavy pull in space that did not belong. It was the kind of signal only one thing could cause. Something massive. Alarms did not sound at first. They never did this kind of reading. Officers leaned closer to their screens, eyes narrowing, fingers freezing above control panels. The numbers climbed. Gravity readings spiked. Space itself began to curve. A junior analyst swallowed hard. That scale is impossible, he said quietly. The command chamber grew silent. Those numbers matched the signature of a planet-class war vessel. A ship so large it could crack moons, crush fleets, and end wars by its presence alone. But no such ship was supposed to exist in this region. And definitely not here. The system was a forgotten edge of Imperial space. No trade routes. No strategic value. Only old stars and quiet worlds. The Empire had ignored it for generations. Yet now, something enormous was there. Bring up visual confirmation, the station commander ordered. Holographic projectors hummed to life. A three-dimensional star map formed in the center of the chamber, zooming inward. Officers leaned forward, expecting to see a shadow blotting out starlight. A metal world drifting like a god. Instead, they saw nothing. No, not nothing. Something far worse. There were ships. Hundreds of them. They were small. Slim hulls. Compact frames. No massive armor plates. No towering superstructures. Each ship was barely the size of a standard Imperial cruiser, some even smaller. They floated in perfect stillness, spread across the system like scattered dust. Confusion rippled through the room. That's it, one officer said. Those are the ships causing the distortion? That can't be right, another replied. Our smallest dreadnoughts are 10 times that mass. The commander's mandibles tightened. Check again. They checked, then checked again. The readings did not change. Space around the fleet was bending. Not violently, not chaotically, but deliberately, as if reality itself was being held in careful hands. And the source was not one ship. It was all of them, working together. A chill crept through the chamber. Identify the fleet, the commander said. The answer arrived seconds later, carried by a data packet stamped with an old, half-forgotten code. Species designation, human. Status, minor civilization. Threat level, negligible. Laughter broke the tension. Humans, an officer scoffed. That species barely builds carriers. They don't even use standard Imperial gravity cores. They were classified centuries ago, another added. Primitive compared to us. Loud. Violent. Then irrelevant. The commander did not laugh. He stared at the display, at the calm formation, at the quiet confidence of ships that did not maneuver or posture or threaten. They don't possess vessels of that scale, he said slowly. Correct, an analyst replied. Our records confirm it. Humanity never achieved megastructure-class shipbuilding. Then explained the distortion, the commander said. No one spoke. The readings continued to climb. Space bent more deeply now, stars stretching like soft glass. The distortion radius grew, steady and controlled. If it collapsed, the entire system could fold in on itself. And the human fleet did nothing. No weapons charged. No shields flared. No transmissions were sent. They simply existed. A senior strategist entered the chamber, his presence silencing the room. He studied the data for a long moment, then asked a question that made every officer feel cold. If humans do not build ships that large, he said, then what exactly are we detecting? No one answered. Because the truth forming in their minds was unthinkable. The sensors were not detecting a ship. They were detecting a method. A way of interacting with space that did not require size, only understanding. Sir, a technician said, voice tight. Long-range scanners are picking up additional effects. Time dilation at micro levels. Local gravity inconsistencies. It's layered, as if each ship is holding part of a larger structure we can't see. The strategist's eyes widened. A distributed system, he whispered. The room erupted in frantic motion. Orders were shouted. Data streamed across displays. Historians were summoned. Scientists pulled from sleep cycles. Humanity, forgotten, dismissed humanity, had crossed Imperial space without permission. And they had done so using technology the Empire could not classify. A message request flashed on the main console. Incoming transmission. Origin, human fleet. The chamber froze. They're contacting us now, someone asked. The commander hesitated. The Empire did not accept communications from lesser species on equal terms. The protocol demanded dominance. Demands. Threats. But looking at the data, at the bending of space, the quiet certainty of the fleet, those protocols felt suddenly fragile. Put it through, he said. The hologram shifted. A human figure appeared. No armor. No weapons visible. Just a calm face, eyes steady, posture relaxed. When the humans spoke, their voice was even, almost gentle. This is a human exploration and defense group, the figure said. We have entered this system to stabilize a spatial anomaly. The strategist stared in disbelief. You are causing the anomaly, he snapped. The human nodded once. Yes, they said, and preventing it from becoming dangerous. Silence followed. The human continued. We advise Imperial forces not to approach. The environment here is sensitive. That word, advise, cut deeper than any threat. The commander felt anger rise. Fear tried to hide behind it. You have violated Imperial space, he said. Withdraw immediately. The human tilted their head slightly, as if listening to something only they could hear. We cannot, they replied. Not yet. Then you will be removed, the commander said. The human expression did not change. We hoped you would say otherwise, they said softly. The transmission ended. At that exact moment, an Imperial scout wing, sent hours earlier to observe, vanished from the tactical display. No explosion, no energy spike, no debris field. Just gone. The chamber erupted in panic. What happened to them? Someone shouted. Sensors searched frantically. Nothing answered. Space where the scouts had been was smooth. Untouched. Silent. The strategist felt something break inside him. They didn't fire, he whispered. They didn't attack. He looked at the human fleet again. They changed the space around them, he said. The commander finally understood. Humanity did not need large ships. They did not need overwhelming numbers. They had learned how to make the battlefield itself obey them. And now, the Galactic Empire was standing inside it. The commander turned to his officers, voice tight with fear. Raise the highest alert, he said. Notify the core worlds. He swallowed. We may have made a terrible mistake, forgetting humanity. The Imperial command chamber did not calm after the scouts vanished. If anything, it became louder. Officers spoke over each other. Analysts flooded the central system with new scans. Emergency signals raced toward the core worlds, carrying a message no one believed they would ever send. Unknown human technology. Fleet operating beyond Imperial understanding. The words felt wrong even as they were transmitted. Humanity was not supposed to inspire fear. They were supposed to be a footnote. The station commander stood frozen, staring at the empty space where the scout wing had been. No wreckage. No radiation spike. No sign that a weapon had ever been fired. It was as if reality had simply decided the scouts were no longer needed. Run a full historical review, he ordered. Everything we have on humans. Wars. Failures. Disappearances. I want it all. Yes, sir. Across the chamber, historians and data specialists accessed ancient archives, files so old they were rarely opened. The holograms shifted, showing images of early human ships, crude by modern standards. Loud engines, thick armor, large cannons. They were aggressive once, a historian said. Highly adaptable, but wasteful. They fought wars with scale and speed, not elegance. Then why stop? The strategist asked. Why disappear? No one answered. The human fleet still floated in silence, their small ships unmoving, as if anchored to the stars themselves. New data arrived. Commander, an analyst said slowly, we are detecting something else. The room quieted. The distortion isn't just around the human fleet, she continued. It's spreading, light minutes at a time, but it's controlled, perfectly measured. The strategist's eyes narrowed. They're shaping a field. Yes, the analyst replied. A layered one. If we fire into it, the energy will disperse, or worse, reflect unpredictably. In other words, the commander said, our weapons are useless. The word hung heavy in the air. The Galactic Empire had never faced an enemy it could not overpower with size. Bigger ships, bigger fleets, bigger weapons. That was how order was maintained. But the humans were not bigger. They were smarter. A signal interrupted the analysis. Imperial patrol vessels at the edge of the system had begun to report anomalies. Navigation errors. Time delays of seconds turning into minutes. Crews complaining of vertigo, headaches, the feeling of falling while standing still. The field is affecting our ships already, the commander said. And they warned us not to approach, the strategist replied. A bitter realization spread through the chamber. The humans had not threatened them. They had protected them from themselves. Open a diplomatic channel again, the commander ordered. Carefully, the hologram reformed. The same human appeared. Calm, patient, waiting. You ignored our warning, the human said, not accusing, simply stating a fact. You erased one of our patrols, the commander replied, anger slipping into his voice. The human's eyes lowered briefly. No, they said. Your patrol entered a region where space-time shear exceeded your structural tolerance. We adjusted the field to prevent greater collapse. By destroying them, the strategist snapped. By preventing a chain reaction that would have killed millions across nearby systems, the human replied. Silence. The commander felt the truth pressing in. The scouts had not been targeted. They had been collateral to a rule the humans controlled. What are you? The commander asked. The human paused. We are what happens, they said, when a species survives its own worst ideas. The transmission ended again. This time, no one demanded it be restored. Elsewhere in the Empire, panic spread faster than official statements could contain it. On core worlds, military councils argued. Admirals demanded permission to deploy dreadnought groups. Politicians shouted that humans were bluffing, that no minor species could threaten the Empire. But the data told a different story. Simulation after simulation ended the same way. Imperial fleets collapsed, not from enemy fire, but from environmental failure. Space bent. Systems failed. Crews died without ever seeing an enemy. The Empire had mastered war. Humanity had mastered not needing it. In the border system, the human fleet finally moved. Not forward, not backward. They spread. Ships drifted apart, expanding the invisible field. Each movement was small, precise, deliberate. They're building something, an analyst whispered. No, the strategist corrected. They're activating something. Ancient human records unlocked at last. A classified report appeared on the main display, buried deep in forgotten archives. Human internal conflict era, the Great Silence. The historian read aloud, voice shaking. Humanity once pursued scale without limit. Artificial gravity weapons. Star-crushing engines. Reality anchors. The projects ended after catastrophic losses. Records indicate entire regions of space became unstable. The commander felt sick. They broke space, he said, and learned from it, the historian replied. According to the report, humanity dismantled its largest constructs. They abandoned megastructures. They erased themselves from galactic politics. They chose small ships, not because they could not build bigger, but because bigger had nearly destroyed everything. They distributed the danger, the strategist said slowly. Split it across thousands of platforms. No single failure point. A message arrived from the core worlds. Authorization granted. Limited engagement approved. The commander hesitated. We shouldn't, he said. But the order stood. A single Imperial battleship group advanced, weapons powered but unfired. A show of strength. A reminder of authority. The moment they crossed the invisible boundary, alarms screamed. Hull stress warnings. Gravity inversion. Time lag. Crew members collapsed as their bodies fought physics itself. Pull them back, the commander shouted. Too late. One battleship twisted, not exploding, but folding inward like paper crushed by invisible hands. Another froze in place, its engines locked in a moment that refused to move forward. The humans still did not fire. Instead, the field adjusted. The surviving Imperial ships were gently pushed backward, ejected from the danger zone like children removed from a fire. Across the Empire, the message was clear. Humanity was not attacking. They were containing the Empire. The strategist leaned back, exhausted. We are not at war, he said. Then what are we? The commander asked. The strategist looked at the human fleet, small ships holding back the collapse of reality itself. We are guests, he said quietly, in a battlefield they already won centuries ago. Far away, in the calm center of the human formation, a human commander watched the Empire's retreat. Their expression was not proud. It was tiring. They're learning, an officer beside them said. Yes, the commander replied, but not fast enough. They looked toward the stars, where Imperial space stretched wide and fragile. And if they push again, the human added softly, we will be forced to remind them why we chose restraint. The human fleet remained silent. Space continued to bend. And the Galactic Empire finally understood the truth it feared most. Humanity was not returning. Humanity had never left. The Galactic Empire did not sleep. Across thousands of worlds, emergency lights burned through artificial nights. News feeds repeated the same distorted images. Imperial warships twisted by invisible forces, human vessels hovering calmly at the center of impossible physics. For the first time in recorded history, the Empire did not know how to respond. In the core worlds, the High Strategic Council convened under a ceiling of living crystals. The oldest species in the Empire sat in silence, their long lives spent believing one truth above all others. Size was power. Now that belief was cracking. The humans are not advancing, one counselor said, struggling to keep his voice steady. They are not attacking Imperial worlds. They are simply there. That makes them more dangerous, another replied. An enemy who wants territory can be negotiated with. An enemy who wants nothing cannot. At the center of the chamber, a massive hologram displayed the border system. The human fleet had spread further, forming a vast, invisible lattice. Entire regions of space shimmered faintly, like heat above stone. The containment field has grown again, a scientist said. They are reinforcing it. Against us, a military leader demanded. The scientist hesitated. No, she said. Against instability. The room fell quiet. Meanwhile, at the edge of the field, an Imperial hospital ship drifted helplessly. It had not been part of the advance. It carried wounded crews from earlier patrols, survivors pulled from failing vessels before systems collapsed. Now it was trapped. Navigation systems refused to respond. Engines fired, but space did not accept the movement. The ship was not damaged. It was held. Inside, panic spread through the corridors. Doctors shouted orders. Patients cried out as gravity fluctuated, gentle one moment, crushing the next. We're going to die out here, a nurse whispered. Then the ship shuddered. Not violently. Carefully. The stars outside the viewports shifted, not as if the ship moved, but as if the universe politely stepped aside. The hospital ship slid backward, slowly, safely, until it drifted free of the distortion. On the bridge, stunned officers watched a single human vessel pass nearby. No weapons exposed. No shields glowing. A soft transmission followed. You were not our enemy, the human voice said. You were in danger. The channel closed. Across the Empire, similar reports poured in. Human ships guiding civilian transports away from unstable zones. Human fields stabilizing collapsing trade lanes. Human technology prevents star flares triggered by Imperial weapon tests. They were fighting a war, but not against the Empire. Against consequences. This confused Imperial command more than any attack ever had. If they can do all this, an admiral argued, why not destroy us outright? The strategist from the border system stood before the council now, exhausted but focused. Because they already learned what that costs, he said, and they decided never to pay it again. Ancient human data continued to surface, unlocked by necessity. Not propaganda, not threats, confessions, records of weapons that shattered star systems by accident, of engines that folded time so tightly that entire fleets aged into dust in seconds, of human wars so brutal they nearly erased their own species. They were monsters once, a counselor said quietly. No, the strategist replied. They were us. Just earlier, in the border system, the human fleet received a new signal. Imperial authorization codes. High priority. A council representative appeared on the channel. Tall, regal, terrified. You are violating Imperial sovereignty, the representative said, though the words lacked conviction. The human commander listened patiently. Sovereignty does not apply, the human replied, to regions where reality itself is at risk. You are threatening the balance of power, the representative said. The human's eyes hardened slightly, not with anger, but with resolve. The balance of power broke long ago, they said. We are only preventing the collapse from spreading. Then leave, the representative demanded, if you truly seek peace. The human commander shook their head. We cannot, they said again. Not until you stop pushing. At that moment, alarms flared across Imperial command networks. A fringe military faction, operating without full council approval, had launched a weapon, a forbidden one, a prototype gravity lance, designed to punch through planetary shields by compressing space into a single destructive line. It fired, not in the human fleet, but through the field. The lance struck space itself, and space broke. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then everything did. The distortion field reacted violently, not collapsing, but amplifying. Gravity waves rippled outward, threatening nearby inhabited systems. Stars flickered. Orbits shifted. Billions of lives were suddenly at risk. The Imperial Council screamed orders. Scientists shouted over one another. Admirals demanded immediate retaliation. The human commander closed their eyes. So, they said quietly. They chose force. Human ships moved at once. Not forward. Inward. They tightened formation, small vessels sliding into precise alignments. The invisible lattice brightened, glowing faintly blue as energy flowed between ships. The field changed shape. Instead of expanding, it hardened. The gravity wave slowed. Time distortion stabilized. The spreading disaster halted, contained within a shrinking bubble. Inside the human formation, crews strained. Sweat ran down my face. Alarms rang, not from damage, but from overload. This is beyond safe limits, an officer warned. I know, the commander replied. They opened a channel to Imperial Command, wide broadcast, unfiltered. You have triggered a cascading failure, the human said. We are compensating, but this will cost us. What cost? An admiral demanded. The human paused. Lives, they said. Ours. The field began to collapse inward, compressing the broken region of space into nothingness. The energy required was immense. Human ships burned power reserves meant to last decades. One ship flickered, then another. Imperial sensors registered something impossible. Human life signs, vanishing. They're sacrificing ships, a scientist whispered, using themselves as anchors. The commander did not look away as one of the vessels winked out, consumed by the force it held back. Hold, they ordered calmly. Another ship failed, then another. But the catastrophe stopped. Space healed. The weapon's damage was erased, sealed behind a wall of human technology and human lives. When it was over, the human fleet was smaller. Significantly so. The Imperial command was silent. The council representatives stared at the display, horror replacing fear. You died for us, they said. The human commander's voice was steady, but heavier now. No, they said. We died to prevent repetition. They looked directly into the camera. We will not allow the galaxy to learn this lesson the way we did. The channel closed. Across the Empire, something fundamental shifted. The humans had not conquered. They had not demanded surrender. They had paid the price of someone else's mistake. The strategist bowed his head. They are not our enemy, he said. A counselor whispered the thoughts spreading through every world. They are our warning. In the quiet of the border system, the remaining human ships drifted, field stabilizing once more. The human commander exhaled slowly. We gave them mercy, an officer said beside them. Will they understand it? The commander watched the stars. They will, they said softly, or they will force us to stop being merciful. And somewhere deep in Imperial space, frightened leaders finally understood the most terrifying truth of all. Humanity's greatest weapon was not power. It was restraint. The galaxy did not forget the sacrifice, but I did not fully understand it either. In the days that followed the containment event, the Galactic Empire fractured internally. Some worlds praised the humans as protectors. Others whispered that humanity had staged the disaster to appear noble. Fear turned quickly into suspicion, and suspicion into pride wounded too deeply to ignore. Empires did not survive by accepting humiliation. In the core worlds, a new faction rose, quiet, disciplined, and furious. They called themselves the Continuity Directive. Admirals, engineers, and strategists who believed one thing with absolute certainty. If humans could bend space, then the Empire must learn to break them. Behind sealed chambers and darkened stars, the directive worked in secret. They studied every scrap of data taken from the border system, not to understand the humans fully, but to find a way around them. And eventually, they believed they had. The weapon was not larger. It was not strong. It was cruder. A resonance disruptor, designed to destabilize coordinated fields by introducing chaos. Not enough to overpower human control, but enough to make it unsafe. The plan was simple. Force the humans to withdraw. If reality began to tear again, the humans would choose restraint or abandon the system. Either outcome benefited the Empire. The High Council never approved the operation. They were never informed. At the edge of the containment zone, human sensors detected the anomaly seconds before it activated. "This isn't a weapon strike," a human analyst said. "It's a harmonic interference. They're trying to desync the lattice." The human commander closed their eyes briefly. "They learned the wrong lesson," they said. The disruptor activated. Space screamed. Not audibly, but violently. The carefully balanced field wavered. Gravity surged in irregular pulses. Time fractured into overlapping layers. One moment stretched endlessly. The next snapped forward without warning. Human ships shuddered. Stability dropping, an officer warned. Field coherence at 70%. Civilian systems? The commander asked. 5 populated worlds within cascade range. The answer decided everything. "Lock us in," the commander said. Human ships moved again, tightening formation. Energy surged between vessels already weakened by sacrifice. Hulls groaned under forces no physical structure should endure. Inside one ship, a young human pilot clenched their hands around the controls as alarms blared. "Why won't they stop?" they whispered. No one answered. Across the field, Imperial forces watched from a distance, confident. They did not advance. They did not fire. They waited. Because for the first time, the human fleet looked strained. And the Empire mistook strain for weakness. "Begin Phase 2, the directive ordered. Imperial vessels powered up their own experimental drives, attempting to punch controlled paths through the distortion field. Small, surgical intrusions. The moment the first ship crossed the boundary, space folded violently. The Imperial ship did not vanish. It screamed. Crew members aged decades in seconds. Metal crystallized, then liquefied. The ship collapsed into a thin line of matter before snapping out of existence. The directive stared in disbelief. That wasn't supposed to happen. The human commander saw it all. "They don't understand," they said quietly. "You cannot half-step into this." More Imperial ships followed. More were lost. But the damage was already done. The resonance disruptor had destabilized the outer layers of the field. Energy spikes rippled outward, faster now, less controlled. Stars flickered again. "This is going to breach," an officer said. "We can't hold this much longer." The human commander opened a wide-channel transmission, every Imperial frequency, every civilian band. Their voices carried across the system. "This is your final warning," they said. "Withdraw all forces immediately. Your actions are destabilizing reality itself." Imperial leaders argued in real time. Some ordered retreat. Others accused the humans of manipulation. The directive jammed retreat commands wherever they could. Then the worst happened. A civilian world, one that had no defenses, no fleets, slipped partially out of phase. Oceans froze midwave. Cities blurred, stretched between seconds. Millions of lives hung on the edge of erasure. The human commander felt the shift like a knife in their chest. "That world wasn't even in the war," an officer said, horrified. "No," the commander replied, "but it's paying the price." They made the decision the Empire never would. "Redirect the core lattice," the commander ordered. "Anchor that world." "That will overload the inner ring," the officer said. "We'll lose ships." "I know." Human vessels surged toward the threatened planet, reconfiguring the lattice mid-crisis. Energy screamed through conduits. Hulls cracked. Crews fought gravity as it tried to tear them apart. Imperial sensors watched in stunned silence. The humans were not defending themselves. They were defending Imperial civilians. One human ship failed. Then another. They did not explode. They simply burned out, power gone, systems fried, crews lost to forces they willingly embraced. The planet stabilized. Its orbit snapped back into place. Time resumed its proper flow. Billions lived. The human fleet was smaller again. The continuity directive fell silent. "What have we done?" one officer whispered. Across the Empire, outrage turned into horror. Civilian networks flooded with footage of the near collapse. Worlds demanded answers. The High Council finally intervened. They issued a single order, broadcast across all military channels. "Cease all operations. Stand down immediately. Too late. The damage was contained, but not erased. The field could not be held forever. Human ships were nearing critical limits. The human commander addressed Imperial leadership one final time. You tried to force us to leave, they said. You failed. But understand this. Every second we remain here costs us lives. The council representative bowed their heads. We did not authorize this, they said. The human commander's eyes were tired, but sharp. Empires are responsible for what they allow, they replied. They turned off the channel. Inside the human fleet, medics worked desperately. Engineers rerouted failing systems. Crews mourned silently while still holding the line. Commander, an officer said softly, how long can we maintain this? The commander looked at the stars, at the fractured region slowly stabilizing under human control. Long enough, they said. Long enough for them to choose. Far away, on Imperial worlds, the truth finally settled in. Humanity was not fighting to win. They were fighting to prevent everyone else from losing everything. And if the Empire continued to push, humanity would be forced to stop holding back. The galaxy held its breath, because for the first time, the humans were no longer merely containing disaster. They were deciding who deserved to be protected, and who did not. The galaxy finally slowed, not because the danger had passed, but because everyone was afraid to move. Across Imperial space, fleets remained docked. Weapons stayed cold. Admirals who once shouted for dominance now spoke in whispers. The name humanity spread through the Empire not as an enemy, but as a question no one wanted to answer. What kind of species sacrifices itself to save the civilians of those who threaten it? The High Council demanded answers, and for the first time in centuries, humanity agreed to give them. A message went out across restricted channels, flagged not as a threat, not as a demand, but as disclosure. Imperial historians, scientists, and leaders gathered as the human transmission began. The human commander appeared again. This time, they were not alone. Behind them, holograms flickered to life. Stars, fleets, ruins. This, the commander said, is why we do not build ships of that scale anymore. The first image showed humanity's past. Ancient human warships, vast beyond comprehension. Hulls layered like continents. Engines that bent gravity so hard stars dimmed around them. Fleets so large they blocked the light of suns. Imperial observers felt awe, then unease. These were our answers to fear, the human continued. When we believed survival meant being bigger, stronger, louder than anything else. The image shifted. A battle. Human ships firing weapons that tore holes in space. Entire enemy armadas erased in seconds, not destroyed, but removed. Regions of space collapsing into nothing. Victory. Then silence. The next image showed the aftermath. Star systems twisted beyond recovery. Time moves unevenly. Planets half present, caught between moments. Billions dead, not enemies, not soldiers, but civilians who lived too close to where humans fought. The chamber grew quiet. We won every war, the humans said, and nearly lost existence itself. Imperial scientists leaned forward, horrified. These weapons, one whispered, they violate fundamental laws. Yes, the human replied, because we rewrote those laws. The images continued. Human worlds evacuating. Massive constructs being dismantled. Entire fleets deliberately scuttled. Records erased. Borders abandoned. We realized something too late, the commander said. When you make the battlefield reality itself, there is no such thing as collateral damage. There is only damage. The final image appeared. A vote. Human leaders standing together, weary, grieving, unified. A single decision recorded in countless human languages. Never again. We dismantled our greatest weapons, the humans said. Not because we could not control them, but because we understood what control truly meant. Imperial leaders struggled to process what they were seeing. You chose weakness, one counselor said softly. The human commanders shook their head. We chose restraint, they replied. There is a difference. The transmission ended, but the effect rippled through the Empire like a shockwave. Suddenly, everything made sense. The small ships, the distributed fleets, the refusal to dominate. Humanity had not fallen behind. They had stepped away from the edge. In the border system, the consequences of imperial pride still lingered. The containment field remained active, but barely. Human ships flickered as power reserves dipped into emergency levels. The crews were exhausted. Engineers slept in shifts measured in minutes. A human officer approached the commander quietly. "Commander," they said, "we're losing cohesion. If another disruption happens—" "I know," the commander replied. They looked at the system map, at the worlds they were holding together with failing technology and human will. "We can't keep this up forever." "No," the officer agreed. "But if we withdraw now, millions die," the commander finished. Silence followed. Elsewhere, deep within Imperial Command, fear finally overpowered pride. The High Council issued a full confession broadcast to every Imperial world. They admitted the unauthorized actions, the hidden faction, the near catastrophe. Public outrage exploded. Worlds that once demanded human withdrawal now demanded human protection. "This is madness," an admiral shouted. "We are asking them to save us after we attack them." A council elder responded quietly. "We are asking because they already are." In the border system, something unexpected happened. Imperial civilian ships began arriving. Unarmed. Slow. Broadcasting distress signals, not to flee, but to help. Medical vessels. Repair platforms. Logistics carriers. They stopped at the edge of the distortion field, afraid to enter. A message came through to the human fleet. "We cannot reach you," the Imperial representative said. "But we can support you. Supplies. Personnel. Whatever you allow." The human commander closed their eyes. For the first time since the crisis began, they felt something unfamiliar. "Hope. Transmit docking coordinates," they said. Imperial engineers worked alongside humans. Awkward, frightened, humbled. They watched human crews hold systems together with technology that looked simple but behaved like miracles. "You could rule the galaxy," an Imperial engineer said quietly as they worked. The human technician beside them did not look up. "We tried," they said. "Once." The field stabilized slightly as shared resources flowed in. Not enough to end the crisis, but enough to breathe. Across the Empire, a new truth spread. Humanity was not hiding in the shadows. They were standing at the edge of disaster, again, because no one else could. The human commander addressed their fleet privately. "We have shown them our past," they said. "Now they must decide their future." "And if they don't?" an officer asked. The commander looked toward Imperial space. "Then we will do what we always do," they said. "Protect life, even from itself." Far away, in the core worlds, the High Council voted. Not on war, not surrender, but on something the Empire had never done before. To dismantle forbidden weapons. To accept limitations. To learn restraint from humans. The vote passed by a narrow margin. Too narrow, because not everyone agreed. In the dark edges of Imperial space, those who still believed in dominance watched the human fleet struggle and smiled. The galaxy had learned why humanity feared power, but some still wanted it, and they were willing to burn everything to take it. The human commander stared at the stars, unaware of the final test still coming. Because soon, humanity would be forced to answer the hardest question of all. Was restraint enough? Or would the galaxy demand proof of what humans had sworn never to become again? The warning came too late. Human sensors detected it first, not as a weapon signature, not as a fleet movement, but as a pattern. A ripple buried deep inside Imperial space, faint and carefully masked. It was familiar in the worst possible way. The human commander stared at the data, blood draining from their face. "No," they whispered. An officer beside them stiffened. "Commander, you recognize it?" "Yes," the commander said quietly. "It's one of ours." Confusion spread across the bridge. "One of our what?" someone asked. The commander exhaled slowly. "One of the things we destroyed," they said. "Or thought we did." Far beyond the containment zone, a rogue Imperial coalition had activated a relic uncovered in secret. A human-era reality engine, salvaged from forgotten ruins and reassembled without understanding. They believed it would free them. They believed it would let them stand equal to humanity. They were wrong. The engine did not create power. It removed limits. Space around it began to peel away like skin. Stars dimmed as causality unraveled. Entire regions slipped out of time, caught between seconds that never ended. Imperial scientists panicked. "It's not stabilizing," one shouted. "It's accelerating." The coalition's commanders ordered more power fed into the engine. That was the final mistake. The distortion exploded outward, not violently, but endlessly. a spreading wound in reality itself, consuming star systems without sound or light. A void that was not destroyed. It is unmade. Human long-range projections ran instantly. The result was absolute. If it reaches critical expansion, an officer said, voice shaking, nothing stops it. Not us. Not anyone. The human commander closed their eyes. They had sworn never to use this knowledge again. But the galaxy had dug it up anyway. Imperial Command flooded human channels with panic. We didn't authorize this, the council cried. We didn't know. The human commander did not raise their voice. It doesn't matter, they said. Reality doesn't care who authorized it. Human ships moved at once. Not just the fleet in the border system. Across hidden regions of space, long silent human assets activated. Relays long thought dead flickered to life. Ancient safeguards awakened. Humanity had prepared for this. Not to use it, but to stop it. The human fleet split, smaller groups peeling away and vanishing into folded space. They were not traveling fast. They were traveling outside distance. Imperial observers could barely track them. What are they doing? An admiral whispered. The strategist answered with dread. They're assembling containment nodes, he said, at a scale we've never seen. As the human ships arrived around the growing wound, Imperial sensors struggled to interpret what happened next. The humans did not attack the engine. They surrounded the damage. They began to rewrite local constants, slowly, carefully, forcing reality back into rules it resisted. Every second, the strain increased. Human ships glowed under forces no vessel should survive. Crews were thrown against restraints as gravity shifted directions mid-breath. Time slipped. Conversations skipped words, then repeated them. This is beyond safe parameters, an officer said. Beyond lethal. I know, the commander replied. They opened a private channel, fleet-wide. This is the line, the commander said. We swore we would never cross it again. What we do next will be remembered. No one replied. They didn't need to. Humanity had made this decision once before. The containment field grew denser, darker. Space inside it stopped behaving like space at all. Light curved inward. Time slowed to a crawl. The rogue Imperial engine fought back. Reality screamed. Human ships began to fail, not one by one, but in clusters. Power cores overloaded. Hulls cracked. Crews vanished into moments that never finished happening. Imperial sensors lit up with impossible readings. They're burning themselves out, a scientist whispered. Using their ships as anchors again. The human commander watched the fleet shrink. This ends now, they said. They gave the order no human ever wanted to hear. Activate the final protocol. Across the human network, a phrase unlocked systems sealed since humanity's darkest age. Last light. A single structure emerged, not from space, but from behind it. Imperial observers struggled to comprehend it. It had no clear size, no defined shape. It was less an object and more a presence, pulling meaning toward it. This was never a ship, the human commander said softly. It was a promise. The last light did not fire a weapon. It absorbed the wound. The spreading void slowed, then reversed. Unmade stars reappeared as echoes, faint but stabilizing. Time reasserted itself with painful force. The rogue engine screamed, its structure collapsing under rules it had never respected. And then it was gone. Erased. So was the last light. Human sensors went dark across entire regions. The human fleet fell silent. The Imperial command waited for retaliation. None came. Minutes passed. Then a single human transmission arrived, weak, flickering. The human commander appeared. Their image was distorted. Their voices strained. It's done, they said. The cascade is stopped. The council representatives stared in horror. At what cost? They asked. The human commander hesitated. Everything we buried, they said, and many we will never replace. The transmission cut. In the border system, the remaining human ships began to withdraw, slowly, unevenly. Some never moved again. Imperial rescue vessels rushed forward, pulling survivors from damaged hulls. Humans did not resist. They barely noticed. The strategist stood before the High Council, voice hollow. They crossed the line they swore never to cross, he said. Not to conquer us. To save us, a counselor whispered. Across the galaxy, worlds that had never spoken humanity's name now taught it to their children. Not as a warning, as a debt. The human commander lay strapped to a medical bed, eyes closed, breath shallow. An officer stood beside them. We stopped it, the officer said softly. Yes, the commander replied faintly. And the galaxy is safe. The commander did not smile. For now, they said. But remember this. The officer leaned closer. When the universe forces humanity to become a monster again, the commander whispered, it means everyone else failed first. Outside the viewport, the stars burned steadily once more. But they felt different now, because the galaxy had seen what humanity truly was. Not conquerors, not saviors, but the final safeguard, willing to damn itself, so existence could continue. And the Empire would never forget how close they came to learning why humanity feared its own power more than any enemy. The war was over, but the silence it left behind was heavier than any battle. Across Imperial space, fleets remained grounded not by orders, but by fear. The shipyards stood still. Weapons factories powered down. No one wanted to be responsible for the next mistake, because everyone now understood what that mistake would cost. The region where the rogue engine had existed was gone, not destroyed, not scorched, but missing. Charts marked it as a blank scar in space. No stars, no radiation, just absence. A reminder. Imperial historians would later struggle to describe it. Some called it a wound. Others called it a grave. Among the surviving human ships, recovery was slow and painful. Many vessels drifted powerless, their crews rescued by Imperial-age ships that approached with almost religious caution. Humans allowed it. They no longer had the strength to refuse. Imperial medics worked beside human doctors, learning anatomy they had once dismissed as inferior. They watched humans bleed. Watched them age. I watched them grieve. They're fragile, one medic whispered. A human nurse looked at him, exhausted eyes steady. Yes, she said. We always were. That truth shook the Empire more than any weapon. In the core worlds, the High Council convened again. This time, no one argued about dominance. They argued about guilt. We uncovered their relics, one counselor said. We used what they buried. And they paid the price, another replied. Again, the strategist stood before them, older now than when this began. Humanity did not threaten us, he said. We threatened ourselves. They simply refused to let us take everything with us. The Council voted unanimously on something unprecedented. A galaxy-wide mandate. All reality-class weapons were to be dismantled. All research into space-time manipulation beyond safe limits was to be halted. Entire military doctrines rewritten. Not because humanity demanded it, but because the alternative was unthinkable. Envoys were sent to the human fleet, what remained of it. They arrived unarmed, carrying no treaties, no demands. Only acknowledgement. The human commander, pale but conscious now, met them aboard a damaged ship held together by emergency fields. You don't owe us obedience, the council representative said. But we owe you the truth. The human commander listened silently. We were arrogant, the representative continued. We believed survival meant control. You proved it means responsibility. The human commander finally spoke. Belief doesn't matter, they said. Action does. The representative nodded. We are changing, they said. We're trying to. The human commander did not smile. Trying is where failure begins, they replied. But it's also where learning starts. The envoys left with no promises made and none asked. Because humanity no longer needed assurances. They had already paid the cost. As the human fleet slowly withdrew, something unexpected happened. Smaller civilizations, those long ignored or exploited by the Empire, began to move. Not fleets. People. Refugees arrived near human-controlled space. Scientists. Engineers. Families fleeing empires that had suddenly lost confidence in their own power. They did not ask for protection. They asked for guidance. Why us? A young human officer asked the commander as they watched the arrivals. The commander thought for a long moment. Because we survived our mistakes, they said, and chose to remember them. Across the galaxy, stories spread. Not propaganda. Not heroic myths. Stories of humans refusing to fire. Of humans dying to stabilize worlds not their own. Of humans afraid, not of enemies, but of becoming them. Children on distant planets learned a new phrase in their lessons. The human line. It meant the point beyond which power must stop. But not everyone accepted this new order. In the shadows, remnants of the continuity directive survived. Stripped of fleets, stripped of authority, but not of belief. They watched the galaxy soften. They watched humanity weaken. And they planned. We were right, their leader said quietly. Power decides history. But they control it, another replied. We can't challenge them. The leader smiled. Not directly, they said. But the galaxy is learning to depend on them. A pause. Independence, they continued, is the slowest way to create resentment. The seeds were planted. Meanwhile, the human fleet reached the edge of known space. There were fewer ships now, fewer voices, empty bunks that would never be filled again. A ceremony was held, not broadcast, not announced. Names were read. No ranks. No titles. Just names. When it was over, the human commander stood alone on the bridge, staring at the stars. We showed them everything. An officer said quietly. Our past. Our limits. Our line. Yes, the commander replied. And they listened. For now, the commander said. They turned away from the viewport. The galaxy is grateful, the officer said. The commander's voice was calm, but heavy. Gratitude fades, they said. Memory doesn't, if it's taught correctly. Far away, in imperial schools and councils, humanity became something new. Not a myth, not a threat, a reference point. Whenever a weapon proposal was raised, someone asked, is this beyond the human line? Whenever an empire spoke of total war, someone answered, remember what it cost them. The galaxy had learned restraint from humanity. But restraint is fragile. And deep in forgotten space, forces older than the empire stirred, watching, listening. They had noticed the disturbance, the wound, the sacrifice, and they were curious. Because if a species existed that could scar reality, then choose not to, that species was worth testing. The human commander felt it before the sensors did. A pressure, a pull, a familiar, unwelcome whisper in the fabric of space. They looked up sharply. Signal coming in, an officer said. Unknown origin. Outside Imperial records. The stars ahead dimmed slightly. Not bending. Watching. The human commander straightened, fatigue forgotten for a moment. Prepare the fleet, they said. Commander, the officer asked, for defense. The commander's jaw tightened. For judgment, they replied. Because the galaxy had just finished learning what humans were willing to do to save it. And now something ancient wanted to know. What it would take to make humanity stop holding back again. The stars dimmed one by one. Not extinguished. Not destroyed. Muted. Across the human fleet, sensors screamed warnings with no language fully described. This was not gravity. Not time. Not space as any known species understood it. It was an observation. Something vast was paying attention. Imperial long-range arrays failed first. Their readings returned nonsense. Negative distances, reverse causality. Signals arriving before they were sent. Human systems held longer. Not because they were stronger. Because they were built with this moment in mind. The human commander stood on the bridge, posture rigid, eyes fixed on the darkening void ahead. They noticed, an officer said quietly. Yes, the commander replied. We always knew they would. The unknown presence did not arrive with fleets. It did not announce itself with weapons. Space simply opened. A shape emerged that refused definition. It was not large, yet it dwarfed stars. Not solid, yet it bent light. It existed across multiple positions at once, as if reality had given up trying to decide where it belonged. Imperial observers watching from afar felt terror sink into their bones. This was not an empire. This was not a species. This was something that tested universes. A voice echoed across all channels, human, imperial, civilian, military, translated perfectly into every language. Not spoken, imposed. You interfere with natural endings. The human fleet did not move. The commander answered calmly. We prevent unnecessary ones. A pause followed. Stars flickered as if the universe itself was thinking. Power such as yours should rule or erase. You do neither. The commander stepped forward. That was a choice, they said, earned through loss. Imperial leadership listened in horror, realizing something far worse than war was unfolding. The presence focused on the human fleet. You bury your strongest weapons. You sacrifice yourselves for lesser species. Explain. The human commander did not hesitate. Because we learned the cost of being right alone, they said. And we decided survival meant sharing existence, not owning it. The presence shifted. Space rippled. This universe has failed before. It will fail again. The human commander's voice hardened, not loud, not angry, unyielding. Then it will fail with witnesses this time, they said, and not without resistance. Imperial officers stared. They finally understood. Humanity was not negotiating. They were drawing a line for reality itself. The presence reacted. Space collapsed inward, not attacking the human fleet, but testing it. Pressure increased beyond any previous limit. Human ships groaned. Systems screamed. This exceeds containment capacity, an officer warned. Commander, this is beyond us. The commander closed their eyes. They had hoped it would never come to this. They opened a fleet-wide channel. This is the last decision, the commander said. No restraint. No partial measures. Silence followed. Then acknowledgments, one by one. Human ships began to move into a formation unseen since humanity's darkest age. Imperial sensors froze. What are they doing? A counselor whispered. The strategist answered, voice shaking. They're not building a weapon, he said. They're becoming one. The human fleet synchronized. Not ship to ship. Mind to mind. Humanity's final safeguard activated. Not technology alone, but collective will encoded into physics itself. The stars stopped dimming. They recoiled. The presence reacted instantly. This is not permitted. The human commander looked directly into the distortion. You don't permit us, they said. We exist. Reality buckled. Not shattered. Asserted. For the first time since it had emerged, the presence was forced to adjust. It was not being destroyed. It was being pushed out. Imperial observers watched in disbelief as the impossible entity retreated, not in fear, but in calculation. You will face consequences. The human commander nodded once. We already have, they said. The presence vanished. The stars brightened. Space settled. The universe exhaled. Across the galaxy, alarms fell silent. Imperial fleets powered down, not because they were ordered to, but because no one had the will to raise weapons again. On the human bridge, systems failed one by one as the strain ended. Ships drifted powerless. Crews collapsed from exhaustion. The commander remained standing, barely. An officer caught them before they fell. Commander, the officer whispered, we did it. The commander smiled faintly. No, they said. We remembered it. Imperial rescue fleets rushed forward. This time, there was no fear, only reverence. The High Council issued a single message to every world. Humanity is not a power to challenge. Humanity is a boundary not to cross. Years later, the galaxy would change. Empires would shrink. Weapons would be limited. Borders would soften. Not because humanity ruled, but because everyone remembered what happened when humanity stopped holding back. Human ships vanished once more into quiet space. Smaller. Fewer. Watching. In Imperial academies, cadets learned a final lesson. When the galaxy panics over ships too small to matter, it is because the species flying them no longer needs size to be terrifying. And in the dark between stars, reality itself carried a scar it could not forget. A reminder that somewhere out there exists a species that once broke the universe, then chose to protect it instead. And that if humanity ever stops choosing restraint again, it won't be because they want to rule. It will be because nothing else learned fast enough.